Welcome back to the show, everyone. I'm joined by my very special guest today, Kiah Imani. How are you today, Kiah?
I am doing great, Kevin. Thank you for having me on. I'm really happy to
Absolutely.
share my story.
You you are one of the long line of folks I've had on the podcast where our lives have crossed paths at that conference. And
Oh, yeah.
I didn't I didn't anticipate this happening, and I didn't even think about it until we were chatting on Twitter and I was making my notes. Kiah looks very familiar. That Kiah from, and we met at that conference when you were working the Auth0 booth.
Yeah.
Uh, and how was that conference for you? Was it enjoyable? It was a smaller crowd, but I had a
I
really
re-
good time there.
yeah, I really enjoyed it as well. It was my very first time going to that conference. Um, I, I've heard very many positive things about that so I was really excited to go, and it did not disappoint. Clark and his crew are just top notch. So I had a really good time. The venue was amazing. Did you get a chance to go into the water park area at all?
I did not. It's my first time out of the Kalahari not going to the water park.
It was great. It was great. They had a adults only area. Oh my gosh, it was awesome.
I think
Well, that's where I work.
next year I'll plan on bringing the swim trunks and going to the water park. I totally forgot about it. I got to the last day there and realized I hadn't gone down to the water park yet.
How did you forget? That's like the whole draw.
Well, that's the thing with that conference. I was go, 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 just conference, conference,
Mm.
conference stuff. And then I think the one free evening I had, I ended up just going back to my room and going to sleep. I think this leads us into our first conversation point is you're currently working with Auth0, correct?
I am. I've been with Auth0 for just under a year now.
And what do you do at Auth0?
I am a developer advocate at Auth0. So I my job is to work conference booths and speak at conferences and create content for developers to help them use Auth0 and help them to help decrease. This is my spill that I like to say to help decrease the friction and the time to get from discovery to the first light bulb moment.
I got it.
Yeah.
What did you do before Auth0?
Before Auth0, this is actually my second DevRel job. And DevRel is developer relations for anyone listening that not familiar with the term. So prior to Auth0, I worked for a company called Progress and supported a product called Chef.
Okay.
Familiar? Yep. A DevOps product. And I was there for about 2 years. And then prior to that, I was full time at my startup, C-Trax, which is what we're gonna dig into later.
Gotcha. So I am very familiar with the Progress line of products and
Okay.
primarily Telric. I knew Telric before Progress bought them, and then uh, Progress does a really good job in general of just finding good companies out there in the developer IT space, and then just putting money into those products. So I think
Absolutely.
overall they've done a really great job. And Chef is definitely one of those products. I don't use it very much. I've used it once or twice, but definitely a good suite of products out there.
Yeah, great products, great communities. That's one of the secret sauce, I think. Especially as Chef, like there are quite a few, you know, DevOps type CI/CD, flavor of products out there, but Chef has a really great community, and that's why I really think. And Progress did a great job of keeping that, you know, focus going. So, kudos to them for that.
Well, let's talk about your startup. So you already threw the name out, C-Trax. Now, I'm saving this for this conversation, but what is C-Trax?
That's a great question, Kevin. Well, C-Trax, it was actually started off as Canatrax, and I probably like leave the hint, but it's a B2B SaaS um, software focused on back office for cannabis dispensaries.
Okay.
Well,
Ha-
like,
All right.
wait,
All
I'm-
right. That makes a
I'm-
ton of sense. Where did the idea for C-Trax come from?
it came from a trip that my husband and I took to Vegas. This was in maybe 2018. Um, we ended up going into a dispensary because they were legal in Vegas. I think it was like brand spanking new. Uh, like the what is it? What is it? Prohibition, like cannabis prohibition had just been lifted
Yeah.
in Vegas, and we were in Vegas for the very first time. Went to a dispensary, and we had a very disjointed, pun intended, I guess.
No, but yeah, I was going to ask.
Get it? A very disjointed checkout experience. And when we asked about it, I mean, I don't know, like I'm an entrepreneur at heart. Both of my parents were entrepreneurs. Every time I like encounter a problem, I'm like, oh, this could be something cool. So we asked about why the checkout experience was, had so much friction. And they said it was because there were not like they weren't using a software that was built for cannabis dispensaries. Like there were none. And so they had to um kind of bubble gum and, like sticky tape something together to make it work for their business. And so that was a mental note. And in that trip, we went to a couple of other dispensaries, and then we went to a couple of other dispensaries in Vegas. And then we ended up going to LA in that same time frame and went to a couple of dispensaries in LA because now we're doing market research, right?
Yeah.
That's what I'm going to call it. And found that everybody was having that same problem. That is where the idea was born.
You said the checkout experience was disjointed, no pun intended, right? And
Right.
what exactly does that mean? I'd imagine going to the dispensary, you just point out what you want, they bag it up, and they give it to you. What was? Of course,
Well,
I say this as a person that's never actually been in a dispensary. I've only seen it on TV. What was disjointed about the experience?
that's a good question. So that's how it should be. That's how it is now, I would say, because there's quite a few players in the game from like that are solving the same problem that we solve. Um, it should be very seamless. Like you go into a store, like a grocery store, and you pay for your thing, right? But what we experienced was, sure, you point to what you want, they'll bring it out. Um, the way that they had to um, track their customers' purchases was something that a normal point of sale system did not have the capability to do. So they would
Okay.
have to pull up something separate, maybe like a CRM system, possibly, and then get my information and then track how much they sold to me, and then go back in at the end of the day and then upload all of that information, or not even upload, excuse me, manually enter all of that information into what I now know to be called a seed to sale tracking system. And that they have to do that for every customer, right? And then not to mention the fact that from a financial perspective, like you can't use at that time you could not use your debit card, for instance, or your credit card. We still can't use credit card. but you couldn't even use a debit card to purchase because it's federally illegal. So like you can't,
Okay.
there's like regulatory things around moving the money, right? And one of the things that normal point of sale systems do is they come with like Stripe or like Square or something like that, that they're built-in merchant services. So when we built C-Trax, one of the things that we did was we made it payment processor or merchant service processor agnostic. So one of the things that we saw there was at the time, you would have a merchant services provider that would accept payments from dispensaries. And then maybe like a couple of weeks later, the regulations would change and then they wouldn't. And then you would have to find another merchant service processor, you know? And so that will be a game that could go on and on and on for, months. And then that could put somebody out of business if they had to continue to, change out their point of sale and inventory management every single time they wanted to, they needed to change out their merchant services provider. And so that was a huge part of the problem that we solved with C-Trax. And like I said, there are quite a few other players in the game right now. So I'm sure I know for a fact that the experience is a lot more seamless now, thanks to a lot of the innovative folks in the industry, but huge headache for dispensary owners back in the day.
I recall vaguely back when states were starting to legalize marijuana. As a independence consultant, I must have gotten half a dozen emails from people looking for developers specifically to help build business systems around marijuana dispensary.
Yep.
And because that industry didn't exist, and then all of a sudden it was allowed to exist. And let me say it this way. It existed. It just wasn't legal. And we had to, well, people, not me, you had to build systems around these new rules and regulations. And I don't think people out there really realize, if they didn't go deep into it, you're touching on it. This is different state to state, and it could almost be different county or city to county or city. And we're talking primarily United States, but that's a ton of headache. And that's one of the primary reasons I didn't get involved in it. Was it's like, oh, that just seems like a lot of effort. Yeah, I don't know if I want to do it. So kudos to you all for going down that route.
Thank you. Yes, it was not easy, and it still isn't. Yes, you're right. State to state, it's different. County to county, it could be different. And you have multi-state processors that, you have dispensaries in different states, and they have to manage all of that nuance, right? And then on top of that, like, these regulations are ever evolving. So it's a huge undertaking to be a software provider in that industry, and not for the faint of heart. Because there's also like not a lot of people that are putting a lot of money into it.
Yeah.
Currently.
They come up with the initial concept for C-Trax. What's it like? Where do you go next? Do you build a MVP, a proof of concept? How do you get that first customer?
We had this idea, and this was booming on the West Coast, right? But we lived in North Carolina. Okay. So it was really like harebrained scheme type thing, right? We saw a problem and needed to be solved, but did we really have access to be able to solve it? And the answer to that was not at the moment, right? But what we did end up having was that same year, hemp became a thing. So since, um, the West Coast and some, select states over on the East Coast had the marijuana, we had CBD,
Hmm.
same problems, right? Except for CBD was federally legal. Still, we encountered the similar issues with merchant service processing. And so that we figured that was like, this is it. This is our moment. Okay, cool. Let's go off to the races. My husband was good friends with a person who started the first CBD dispensary in Charlotte, North Carolina, and they ran it just like they ran on the West Coast. So it was the exact same experience, but it was just different products, similar product, but just different. Um, so that was our first customer. We had our MVP going. It was terrible, and it's funny because my first investor said, if you release a product and you're not embarrassed by it, you release too late. So we were embarrassed. We actually ended up having to, thought it was great at first, but then we realized how many holes we had to plug. And that was April of 2018 that we got our first customer. It was actually April 1st, and it was the craziest April Fool's Day ever because we went in there, we did their entire inventory. They have been open for they probably have been open for, let's say, about 4 or so months, but they never really managed their inventory. They just they had it, they sold it. If they didn't, they couldn't sell it, you know? But they didn't really have projections. They didn't really know, okay, I'm going to have to buy, pre-roll in a week in order to kind of keep with my current flow. So we ended up going in there and doing their entire inventory from scratch. This was like thousands of products, right? And so, hundreds of products, but then also tens of variants of those products. And those are all individual SKUs.
Yep.
So we ended up going in and doing that manually and for our first onboarding. And then we ran into, the first problem that we ran into was the fact that we were using a web app, right? And we had to, our customers needed to use peripherals, like they needed a Bluetooth printer, they needed to be able to, it was not the Bluetooth printer. The Bluetooth printer was the biggest thing, but I think also like the barcode scanner was another thing that they needed to use, but it didn't really work well with web app.
Hmm.
So we immediately realized that we needed to do something native, and they were like, okay, well, can we use iPad? And I was like, I mean, you could, but we don't have an iOS app. So
Yet.
that was the next step. We and no, but everybody wanted to use iPads. Everybody in the store at that time. But we still only had that one customer. We probably only had that one customer for about a couple of months while we tried to figure it out because we were really like, oh, it was really bad. Okay, so
Yeah.
eventually, we launched our second version of our product, right? Our like we went GA, if that bit, Um, so we had our iOS app, we had um our admin, which was still a web app, and we were off to the races. We started acquiring customers. So wait, this was not April 2018, this was April 2019. By September 2019, we had launched our second version. And we all know what happened in 2020.
Yep.
So we had, by the time COVID hit, we maybe had like 11 customers. You know, we were like, okay, we're doing great up until COVID and everybody had to close. Well, everyone except for maybe a handful of our customers closed because uh, cannabis dispensaries were they were considered what is it, a vital, what is it? What, like
Oh,
the
essential.
essential, yes. They were an essential business. So they were able to
Thanks.
stay
Great.
open. If you had enough money to stay open, you know, if you had the enough money to keep your business running, you could keep it running. You didn't have to close down. So we had lost half of our customers and half of our revenue, but we still had these other customers that were still relying on us to keep going. Okay. But now we had other requirements because now we needed to do curbside pickup, and you know, we needed to do deliveries. Some folks were doing deliveries and things like that. So we had to pivot like our roadmap and you know, accommodate those needs because we needed to be able to keep the people that we had going, right? That was essential. Um, and that was the time. Okay, at that point we were both full time. We'll end up talking about how that ended up happening, but we were both full time. With COVID, and we were just trying to make this thing work. We were putting one foot in front of the other, making this thing work. And eventually we would start getting, you know, people would start opening up again and we would start getting new customers. And then we started targeting franchises as things started opening up more. People started the life started coming back into the industry, if you will.
You lit up, is what
We
you're
lit
saying.
up. We did.
Yeah.
We did. We lit up and we rose to the occasion. And it was just, it was a, it was a uphill battle though from the beginning. I do think, you know, COVID really did, you know, stick a monkey wrench in us, like did with everybody else. You know,
Yeah.
we were no exception to that rule. But I definitely do think it was a testament to grit and determination that we were able to survive that time.
What was your pricing model like for a dispensary?
So we would do it would subscription basically had a $99 subscription for each terminal, for each like point of sale system. And normally like smaller stores would have one. This was per month. So and if you had two or more, we would, you know, we would have maybe I think it was 149 at the time for her two terminals. And then we would increase our pricing as it went from there. And then we had like once we entered into franchise, we had a different pricing model for that because you know, that's definitely a different territory because you would need to be able to um look at all of the stores that you have in your franchise. So that was
Hmm.
a different product, if you will. Um so we had like more enterprise level pricing model for that.
You said that you and your husband went full time on C-Trax. It doesn't seem like that was on purpose, though.
It wasn't on purpose. So here's what happened. We thought we were gonna be raising VC because we saw like folks that were excited to get into the market from, you know, an investment perspective. We thought we were gonna well, we thought we were gonna do an accelerator first and then raise VC, et cetera, et cetera. That was what we wanted our trajectory to be. And so my husband at the time was working for car sales no, excuse me. He was in software sales for car dealerships, and it was like a very conservative company. And
Mm-hmm.
so I don't know who advised us. One of our business advisors, like, there's a whole industry and like telling startups the things that they need to do and getting startups to pay them for terrible advice. All right.
Yeah.
Okay. Like people make a lot of money doing that. But somebody, one of our advisors said, um, that in order to attract, investment, we need to be serious about it and we need to put it on our LinkedIn, et cetera, et cetera. Now, the company that I work for, I was doing consulting at the time, at Dev Consulting, and our first investor was um the CEO of that company. So he was cool with it. Um, but my husband's company, and I told him I was gonna do it, before I did it. But my husband's company, was a very conservative company, so we found out. And as soon as he put it, that he was on doing cannabis, anything, they called in a meeting with a few other people that were not on the meeting invite and told him that they no longer needed his services.
Oh no.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So that was how we both ended up. Well, no, that was how he ended up full time. And then so company that I was working for, there was like some restructuring that happened. And I just honestly, I really believed in what we were doing. And I really wasn't happy with like the restructuring of things. And so I just took a leap of faith and I was like, all right, well, and the thing was, my husband was full time on it, but his job was to interact with customers. I was building a thing, right? So like if anyone needed to be full time, like if we had done this strategically, he wouldn't have put anything on his LinkedIn and I would have gone full time on it. Right.
Mm-hmm.
He would have kept his job. But we did not. We were just living on a prayer, you know? And so I wasn't happy with, like I said, the way things were going at work. And I was like, you know what? I am going to go full time on this. I took a leap of faith. Um we had made it to the last round of consideration for uh a an accelerator. And I was like, okay, well, we're gonna get in this accelerator. And when we get in this accelerator, we're gonna need to go to Colorado anyway. So I mean, why not? And we ended up not getting to the accelerator, like for whatever reason. They gave us some, BS. That's what they do. Like, oh,
I'm I'm in that club too. I had a startup. We got to the last round of Techstars Accelerator, and that's when we were politely told thanks but no thanks. And they actually took another group that was very similar to our product, and that product crashed. So they lost that bet. They could have won with us. We were
right?
sure a winner. I mean,
What a slap in the face, man. Look, I have a similar story because we had another competitor, kind of. It was a friendly competition. We could compete and also integrate. Um, these guys, pedigree. I think it was a pedigree thing. But these
mhm.
guys, they got $500,000 off of idea on a napkin, and they're gone now.
Hold on. I got a couple napkins just laying around here. You're
They
telling
raised
me.
they raised a half a mil off of an idea on a napkin, which is what we thought when you watch the YouTube videos, and that's what they tell you to do. There's this one guy, Dan Martell. I'll never forgive Dan Martell.
I know Dan. Yep. I
You
know of
know?
Dan.
Oh my
Hmm.
God. Like, Dan tells you can do these things. And I'm like, oh, all right, I'm gonna follow Dan's plan. And we followed Dan's plan and it was not the same for us. But anyway, that was a rude awakening for me. I realized that it was also, like I said earlier, like there's a whole like industry that has been created around like giving startups bad advice and taking money
Yeah.
from them for that bad advice. Like millionaires are made in that industry. So I'm just saying. And I'm not saying that Dan Martell is one of those people, but I am saying like there's a lot of nuance that needed to be talked about in those videos.
You have to really invest in the personality to get any sort of return. Dan Martell is one of those guys. Like, I'm sure he has really good advice. He doesn't give that good advice away for free. So all the stuff he's putting out publicly, if you read his book, he's not giving away the good stuff. He gives the good stuff away to the person that pays him $100,000 for consulting services or for coaching services. And even then, it's probably not even good advice. It's probably, here's access to my network. And that's what you're ultimately paying for. I don't think you're paying for advice. I think you're paying for the network.
I mean,
And
that makes sense. Your network is your network.
it
Have you heard?
is.
But
So
yeah,
where is C-Trax now?
C-Trax is still functioning. We are at almost 100 stores now. Like we're actually, but with our pricing model, we are like C-Trax self-sustaining. Nobody's
Okay.
becoming rich off of it. You know what I mean? And everybody still has to have jobs. I am currently not a part of the day-to-day running the C-Trax anymore because um for reasons that I don't necessarily want to go into. It-
That's fine.
yeah. But it's still around and we're still doing our thing. It's just that it went totally different than what I expected for it to, you know?
How's that?
We expected to be in medical and adult use cannabis right now. Um, we are not because there's like a whole gatekeeping type of situation that happened in that industry that you don't know about until you know about it. And also, um, well, so when I went back full time, like I went back to work, right? We have to pay bills at the end of the day, and um, it was a situation where, you know, when you go into business with your significant other, right? And you go into business and you have these like real serious challenges. It really takes a toll on everything. It takes a toll on your household, it takes a toll on everything. So
Yeah.
like that ended up happening. And in order to kind of save my household, I took a step back and he, continued down the road of leading the charge for C-Trax, which I support. It was a necessary thing to do. Because we kind of didn't see eye to eye on the way things were supposed to go. But, I'm like, this is your show, run with it. I'll be in the background. And, now we're here.
And that makes sense. And it's not, and it's compounded because you have your spousal relationship, and
Mhm.
now you have a business relationship on top of it. And you're not dealing with just business partner issues. In that case, it flows down into the other things where
Oh,
you
yeah.
might be making dinner and go, "Oh, why are you upset? I'm upset because you made a dumb decision that's impacting my bottom line and putting food on our table.
Right.
It's, you can't just leave that. It follows you home, literally.
Literally. Were you a fly on the wall at my house?
No, but I have talked to plenty of folks where the couple are business partners,
Mhm.
and there's some that work out just fine, and then there's some where it's just not seeing eye to eye. It's like, I'm not in a business relationship with my wife because I'm pretty sure we would not see eye to eye on certain business decisions, and
Yeah,
it's for
no.
the best that we don't work together.
Sure. Like, I mean, well, I would tend to think that, well, I mean, and everybody else says too, like when you're in a business relationship, it's like a marriage. And it
Yeah.
is, but like some people don't need to be double married. You know what I mean? Some people only need to be single married. So
Yeah.
that was us. And a couple of the learnings that I got from that, because it was a real, like I said, it was a steep uphill journey for C-Trax to, to become what it is and to become like self-sustaining, right? Um, like even down to the fact that when we were trying to raise capital, um, we were trying to raise it from a place where, you know, we weren't known in the industry. The industry was, first of all, there's medical and adult use cannabis, and then there's CBD. And then CBD is like
Hmm.
the step cousin, not even the step sister. It's a step cousin. And so there's not really a lot of people who are super excited about the CBD industry because they feel like it's going to go away as soon as medical and adult use is federally legal. So they're not putting a lot of money into it. But in the medical and adult use cannabis side, the location really plays a lot of it's a huge factor in the network of people that you're going to be exposed to, like in the places that you're going to be able to the rooms that you're going to be able to be in on a regular basis and become like a face that people know, right? But also, like we didn't have any kind of personal brand where people could look you up and find something.
Yeah.
It gives them a little bit more. It gives them a little bit more, you know, trust and a little more faith that you are who you say you are, right? And that's one of the biggest things that I did learn in this whole process was, okay, so I didn't go to Harvard. I didn't, like I didn't even, I guess a software engineer, I wasn't even at like Google or anything. That's a different thing. Like if you're ex-Googler, people will throw money at you. But um, I needed to make, I needed to have a personal brand. Like we both realized that that was imperative for like any type of you know, capital raise moving forward. And in addition to that, since we ended up going full time and falling flat on our face from a financial perspective, we both realized that we needed some type of passive income that was not necessarily attached to the business that we were running.
Hmm.
So that way we could like have a little bit of breathing room. So those are the things that I ventured off and focused on. I ventured off and focused on personal brand building, and then I got into real estate.
How's real estate been working out for you?
It has been a journey. It's been good though. It's been a different type of journey. I'll tell you that. It's been good. I'm doing. I'm doing midterm rental. And the way that I'm doing it, which is very, very, it's not super popular. I'm doing rental arbitrage. And I got into it
Okay.
in 2020. I've been in it for about a year, right? It was 2023 that I got into it. Interest rates were terrible. So I'm like, I'm not going to just try this and like buy a house or be, pay all this high interest and XYZ. Let me try rental arbitrage. Those who don't know what rental arbitrage is, it's when you rent a property from a landlord and you then go and sublease that property for a profit. So that's what I've been doing for the last year. And it has been very profitable. I'll say that. It has been profitable. In the year that I've had my rental, I had a group stay there for 7 months and I was making $2,500 in profit every single month. So that was awesome. They moved out and they left bed bugs. And so I was
Oh no.
out for like a whole month. That was last month from April 1st, April Fool's Day again. Obviously, I had to go and handle
Is
that.
this a case where you're furnishing the house?
Yes. I furnish it, provide, all of the fixings. So furniture, bedding, even toilet paper and things like that, at least to get people started.
Gotcha.
And my niche that I'm targeting is travel nurses, but what I ended up with is what I ended up attracting more than travel nurses are interns and construction workers. Go figure.
Okay.
Yeah.
They don't necessarily need a place to stay for a year. They can't commit to a year-long lease,
Right.
but they could commit to 4 or 5 months, do the job, and then go home.
Right. Exactly. And with construction workers, there's, they have like a stipend, apparently. I did not know this, but like like I said, there's subcontractors. There's a per diem for lodging. So they're able to, pay above market rate for the, shorter term leases. And that's where I make my profit.
Oh, that's excellent.
Yeah.
So now I need to ask you, just kind of, we're coming to the end of our time together. What's the end game for you?
So the end game, I mean, I love my job, right? I love what I do. And I've never seen myself working for someone forever. Oh. So what my plan is, here's the plan. The plan is to continue to build my personal brand, content creation, and like my full-time job really helps with that, like kind of adjacent, right? Generate passive revenue. Now, my midterm rental, I realize is not passive revenue. The next step for that, for the real estate game, is going to be multi-family housing. And I'm going to do some house hacking and I'm going to kind of build from there. So those two things, personal branding, passive revenue, and then I do want to, once I have those things down pat, I do want to do another startup, but it will not be in a nascent, highly regulated industry.
There you go. Yeah, pick something a little safer.
Yep, it'll be regular.
I'm calling the segment Action Over Inspiration. This has been a very inspiring story, and there's a lot of really good tidbits in the conversation. But if someone out there was looking for something that they could start today to put them on a similar path as you, what advice would you give to that person?
I would definitely say start working on a way to passively generate income. Because once you have passive income, it really gives you the flexibility to branch off and do other things. Um, so whether that be real estate, whether that be what are some other, maybe like we could do, I don't know, car sharing. I don't know if that's passive, but things that you can do without it being super um like time heavy. It doesn't require a lot of your time. So that way you can focus on what you actually want to do and you don't drown while you're while you're building your business up. And I would also say to those who do have full-time jobs and are working to, work on a side hustle and saying, you know what, maybe I should go and do this full time. I would definitely say when you think it's time to go full time, wait and and, and see, like, if you check-ins and saves, you actually should do the math. You shouldn't go on a hunch. Do the math. And if once the numbers add up, if the dollars make sense, then take the leap. Because, when you live on a prayer, it could work, but it could also take a lot longer to work. To work right away, but it can also take a lot longer to work. And it's a lot about luck. And it's not necessarily all about, you know, the work that you do. So I would definitely say those two things. Go for passive first and wait to quit your full-time job.
Interesting enough, I have a friend, and I'm not going to name him or anything, but he kept meticulous spreadsheets of his income from his side businesses.
Mhm.
And he worked a full-time job and he had side businesses. And every month he would say, all right, side business A made this much money. I had this much expense. So much profit. Business B, and so on. He says, all right, I'm only making, it was a 5-figure number per month of
Okay.
income on just his side businesses, not including his day job. And we would regularly, as part of this little mastermind group that we have, we would say, why do you still have the full-time job? And he would go, still doesn't feel right. I'm not having to do a lot of work. They're producing good income. It's just extra income. And a couple of months later, we'd ask him again, why do you still have the full-time job?
Right?
And we would ask him this. And eventually he got to the point and went, you know what? I'm done. I'm going to quit the job and just go all in on my personal projects. And he went easily years
Mhm.
of being stable enough in these side projects where he could have gone full time and just chose not to. Because sometimes it's just nice having the flexibility and the security of the full time job,
Oh, yeah.
just in case.
I didn't realize how much I loved getting a paycheck until I didn't get one. Like,
Ha,
getting a paycheck and then not getting a paycheck and then getting one again, I was like, "Oh, wow.
yep,
Oh, this is great." Like, "I'll do what you need me to do. It's cool as long as you keep paying me."
absolutely.
Because another thing is there's gonna be a point, depending on what you do, there's gonna be a point where you're working for free, you know? Like, whether it be a month, whether it be a year, and you don't know what your utmost is. I was in the military and I did SEER, and one of the things that we did in our SEER training was, or one of the sayings was, resist to your utmost. And you don't know what your utmost is until you're there, and you're like, okay. I cannot work another day without getting paid. So
Yep.
yeah, you'll definitely find you'll find out a lot about yourself when you take that leap. So do it wisely. Like, I think your friend did it the right way.
Kiah, it's been a pleasure chatting with you about your journey, and I'm looking forward to keeping in touch with you in the future and just see how things go. And we'll have to see each other again at future conferences, wherever that might take us. But thank you so much for hanging out with us today.
Thank you so much for having me, Kevin. And yes, we will definitely keep in touch and stay tuned for the more shenanigans, because there will be more. I know it.
All right. That's it for today on the Multithreaded Income Podcast. Everyone else, I'll see you next week. Thanks and take care.
You've been listening to the Multithreaded Income Podcast. I really hope that this podcast has been useful for you. If it has, please take a moment to leave a review wherever you get your podcast from. And don't forget, the conversation doesn't stop here. Join us on our Discord at mti.to/Discord. I've been your host, Kevin Griffin, and we'll see you next week. Cha-ching!